Hey guys, John here. This is video 4, point number 3 on the case for Rick Santorum. So this point says that the Republican non-liberal base will be best united under Santorum. Real quick, the reasons why. His current position, the amount of money he has and the amount he can raise, and his ability to effectively use that money. And then point 3 is his moderate stance, his moderate position stance. So let me go ahead and go over to this PowerPoint. I'll throw in some visuals here for y'all. So here we can see the Powerline blog post, How Conservative is Rick Santorum's Record. Now you can go check this out yourself, link in the description. But basically what it says is that Rick Santorum is an 88 out of 100 on this scale from the American Conservative Union, which is a very reputable think tank, and they kind of rate how conservative you are. And this score of 88 out of 100 puts him precisely as a moderate conservative, because at the time it was taken, as the blog post states, 20 had voting records more liberal than him, and 26 had more conservative than him, and 4 had statistically not different than him. And that was back when this thing was done in 2006. And since 2006, he's tried to play to the even more conservative side for a political gain. But the fact of the matter is that since 2006, his policy stance, he's become more conservative. And I would put him at precisely in the middle. I'd say 23-23 is a present, 2012 better number. So that goes to the fact of his moderate stance. And this moderate stance is really more attractive than the extremist stance of Ron Paul. Although we can argue about Ron Paul's social policies, because actually his social policies are liberal and his other policies are super conservative. But the problem of Ron Paul is that he's an extreme candidate. Now, while I personally love this, and a lot of people love it about him, that he is the extreme candidate, the problem is that this makes it difficult for him to be accepted by the average voter. Alright, and it even more makes him difficult to be accepted by the mainstream media, and whether you like it or not, the mainstream media influences tons of voters. So by being the moderate candidate, you'll get a little more credibility with the mainstream media, and all these things make you, despite the fact that I hate the word, all these things make you more electable. So that's his moderate stance. Let's take a look at his current position. It may be a bit much to call it current anymore, but here's a screenshot I took on March 24th, and at that time he was 5 points behind Romney. Well, Gingrich, who was the next runner-up, this is polling data. This is an average of several polls, and it's from Real Clear Politics. Gingrich was 15 points behind Santorum, and Gingrich didn't even have a score of 15 points. So he had less than half of Santorum's score, and Santorum was 5 behind Romney. In other words, his position is simply the best out of those non-liberal candidates. Remember, the other video I argued that we need to consolidate behind one of these non-liberal candidates. Well, Santorum is up and away the leader amongst the non-liberal candidates as of today. And this trend has continued. It is still true. In fact, if you look at this, if you add Gingrich and Paul together, Santorum is still higher than both of them combined by about the margin necessary for him to gain to beat Romney. So let's go to money. Here you can see how much money Rick Santorum has and has spent. So he's gained about $56 million and spent about $54 million. We can compare that to Ron Paul has gained about $34 million and spent about $34 million. So Ron Paul has about $500,000 on hand that he can spend, while Santorum has closer to $1.5 million on hand. Now, this is of interest not just because of how much is on hand or how much they've raised, which is a good indicator of what they can raise in the future, but you can actually see the curve here of Ron Paul's raising, and you can see how it spikes and then floors pretty quickly. Well, you don't get a chart of that from Rick Santorum, but the other research you can find around the internet and that I've done indicates that as Rick Santorum has gained prestige, he has also gained the ability to raise more money. Well, guess what? He didn't start off a very prestigious candidate. He really took to fame after Gingrich nosedived, which is a relatively recent phenomenon in terms of months. So he's actually, Rick Santorum is actually at his place now where he can raise more money than ever. Okay, so it's not just a matter of having more money on hand, it's also a matter of being able to raise more money. And furthermore, he can spend the money better. Because let's take a look at this Cincinnati Enquirer article. And you can see that, oh, I'm sorry, that's not where we need to be. Let's look at this The Blaze blog article where it says that Romney outspent competitors in Illinois. Well, Romney outspent in the Chicago media market all of the other candidates 21-1. He spent $21 for every dollar spent by the others. And this just goes back to money is the mother's milk of politics, and the effectiveness of marketing, the effectiveness of advertising, and the really cold, hard, sad reality that the common person can be bought and sold with money, their votes, because the common person is relatively ignorant, and money has the ability to channel the information they're going to see primarily in that mainstream media, and that just by virtue of being exposed to information, whether it's true or not, they often come to believe it. Because you got to realize a lot of people don't have computers, don't have internet. While there's a lot that do, there's also a lot that don't. And even amongst those who do, a lot of them would prefer to trust the quote-unquote professional media and professional journalists and professional radio, professional TV over their own ability to research, unfortunately. So this thing talks about, spent 21-1, and it goes on to say that Santorum was spending about a seventh of him. Okay, so he outspends everyone 21-1. Is that right? The only pro-Santorum spending was $97,000, so that's about $100,000. And then he got about 21, or 2.1 million. Right. So so you can see in that little part that pro-Santorum spending was about 100,000. Romney spending was about 2.1 million. So he really outspent Santorum 21-1. Well, how'd that pay off for him? Well, let's go to the results of the Illinois primary, and this is fairly recent stuff, is why I bring up the Illinois primary. Results Illinois primary. I have the results on Yahoo News. Well, this is what I get for being unprepared, I guess. Alright, here is, I'll send you all this. Alright, so you can see here the Illinois primary, the results were that 42 delegates went to Romney and 12 went to Santorum. 0 went to Gingrich, 0 went to Paul. So he outspent Santorum by a margin of 21-1, but he got less than 4 times, 3.5. He actually got 3.5 times the number of delegates. So 3.5 times the number of delegates with 21 times the spending shows that Santorum is much better at how he uses that money. In other words, the marginal effect of his dollar is much stronger than Romney. Additionally, Gingrich and Paul, in this example, both got, now I'm unaware of how much money they spent, but they both got 0 delegates out of that primary. So assuming they spent any amount of money, 0 divided by any amount of money is 0, which is less than the effectiveness of Santorum. So assuming they spent any money there, their dollar goes less far than Santorum's dollar does. And that's just one example, and of course this stuff can be taken out of context. But at the time that I got this data, that was the day before, so that was the most recent data. But we can just look at, on average, the amount of money Santorum has spent compared to Paul, according to that information I showed you, is really about 1.5. Santorum spent about 1.5 times as much money as Paul. But how many more delegates has he gotten? He's gotten about 4 times as many delegates. So 1.5 times as much money, 4 times as many delegates. And you can see that his ability on average across all the states thus far, his ability to spend that money has been more effective. So we talked about his moderacy, we talked about money, and we talked about current position. That's all I got for you. See you in the next video.